We're going to talk about 12.1. So remember I told you class the other day that we did not, or the book didn't put it in the right order. So 12.1, we're going to talk about adding and subtracting these matrices. In order to add and subtract, they must be the same dimension. Okay, so for example, if I have a 2 by 2, so 1, 2, 3, 4, and I call it a 2 by 2 because it's 2 rows by 2 columns, and I want to add that, I have to add it to another 2 by 2. Again, this is a 2 rows by 2 columns. They have to be the same size and same dimension in order to add them. And then when you add them, you simply add the same elements together. So we're going to add element A11 to this element A11. So in our new matrix, when we add them together, we'll have 5. And then we have to add A12 to A12 in this one, and we get 5 over here. We have to add A21 to this A21. And of course, in the last spot then, this A22, we would add to this A22. Our answer would be 5. All right, so when you add them, they have to be the same size, same dimensions, and you add the elements together. So we add same elements together. All right, if you guys have a question, don't be afraid to say something at any point, okay? The same thing would happen if we're subtracting. So if we are subtracting matrices, let's say this time I have -2, 1, 7, and 3, 0, 5. And I want to subtract, again, it has to be the same dimension. So 1, 2, 4, 0, -6, 5. All right. So when you're subtracting, though, you got to be really careful because there's going to be those negatives that are going to overlap. So in this first one, it's -2 minus 1. So our first element would be -3. 1 minus 2 is -1. And then the last one in the first row, 7 minus 4 is 6. Okay. Here, 3 minus 0, 3. In the middle, we have 0 minus a -6. We have to make sure you pay attention. Those two negatives together become the sandwich, we used to call it. And so we have a +6. And then 5 minus 5 is 0. Okay? So adding and subtracting them is as straightforward as it looks. You're just adding the numbers that are in the same element spot. All right. That being said, there has to be something harder, right? So here is example number 1. Of course there does. So I'm going to have you solve each matrix equation. So when I say it's an equation, that's exactly how it's going to be written. You're going to have x, and then maybe minus a matrix of 2, 3, 1, 5 equals matrix -6, 1, 2, and 3. This is technically an equation. You see, we have x minus something equals something. So there's 2 ways to solve this. You can add this matrix to the other side just like you would for an equation. Or we can do each one separately, and that's the way I prefer it because they're going to get a little harder. So if we start with our first element spot, we have x minus 2 equals -6. And if I add 2 to both sides, I have x equals -4. Maybe I have -4. So over here, I'm going to say that x is the matrix, and in my first spot, I'm going to have a -4. All right? So then I'm going to do that for all four. I'm going to do that for all four of those spots. Sorry, I'm having technical difficulties. Give me a second. All right. So then if we do the next spot, let's do this one. We have x minus 3 equals 1. So I'm going to add 3 to both sides. So we have x equals 4. And again, that was doing this A1, 2 spot. So we have a 4 here. We're going to do that for the next 2 at the bottom. Okay? I know it sounds like that's extra work because you should be able to do it this way. But as I said, they're going to get harder and more stuff going on. All right, so let's do the next 2. We have x minus 1 equals 2. So if I add 1 to both sides, I have x equals 3. This one's 3. And the last spot I have is I have x minus 5 equals 3. Adding 5 to both sides, I get x equals 8. X equals 8. So this is my solution that I'm looking for. You have a couple of those in your homework today on the worksheet. Is there any question on those? Okay, so then let me show you another type of matrix equation that could come up. All right, here's example number 2. So let's say we have something that looks like 4, 6, 2a, and 7. And I tell you that equals 3b plus 1, 6, 12, and 7. So you notice we have 2 variables in here. And we've got to solve for both a and b. So we're going to start by solving for a, and you'll notice a is in this spot right here. So we can set it equal to the same spot in the second matrix. So I have 2a equals 12. Dividing both sides by 2, find that a equals 6. Then when we go to solve for b, the b is in this a1 spot, so I can set those 2 equal. So I have 4 equals 3b plus 1. Subtracting 1 to the other side, I get 3 equals 3b. So find out b equals 1. So there's times where you have variables within the matrix, and there's times where you have a variable that represents the matrix. It could do both. Does anybody have any questions so far? No? Everybody's still good? Okay. All right. I just want to make sure. Okay. All right. So let's just do a couple more examples, and I'm going to be done for today, and then I will get that worksheet up for you. Okay? A couple more examples. So here we go. Example number 3. So something just a little bit harder. How about say I have 8, 6, -2, and 0, and that equals 3a minus 1, 2a, 5b plus 3, and a plus 3b. All right, so I need to figure out what a and b are. I could set 0 equal to a plus 3b, but that's not going to help me at all, right? So I need to first solve for an A. So I can either set 8 equal to 3A minus 1, or I can set 6 equal to 2A. So I'm going to do the one that's a little less work, which happens to be setting this 6 equal to 2A. If I do that, I get A equals 3. Which means if that's true, it should also work here, right? So if I were to plug 3 in here, 3 times 3 is 9, minus 1 is 8, which also equals 8 here. Let's solve for B. The only thing that has just a B in it is this one, that's 5B plus 3. And we've got to set that equal to the same spot in the other matrix. So I have negative 2 equals 5B plus 3. Subtracting 3 to the other side. I have negative 5 equals 5B. Divide both sides by 5. And of course, B equals negative 1. So if I were to plug both 3 in here and negative 1 in here, I should get 0, which I would. Okay? All right, and then I have just a little bit more. One more problem to show you. In our last, oops, sorry about that. My bad. In our last example, example number 4. You're going to have a list of matrices at the top. So maybe A equals the matrix 1, 2, 3, 7. Fix that, sorry. B equals 1, 2, 9, negative 3, 4, 6, and C equals 1, 2, 0, 0. Okay. And then you're going to have 4 problems that are going to have you combining these different ways. So maybe you get A plus B. Maybe you get A plus B. All right. So remember, one of the first things I told you is that they have to be the same dimension to add them together. So am I going to be able to add A plus B together? Because A is the dimensions of 2 by 2, and B is the dimension 2 by 3. So I cannot add these two. So when you get something like that, you just say no solution. Okay? So this one, and this first one, when we do no solution, maybe, sorry, my board's not happy right now. All right, so this is no solution, is what I said at one point. So what if I wanted to add, I tried to beat it, it didn't work. Sorry about that, guys. I feel bad. I left my good board at school. Huh? Yeah, slightly. Besides, I love that picture. It really does. All right, let's see if it works now. Oh, see, okay. So maybe for the A plus B, that was no solution. But what if I wanted to say A minus C? So even though they're not written next to each other, on your paper, you're going to want to write them next to each other so that you can see how those work together. So if I had A minus C, I want to make sure that that's what I write down. that'll be easier to work with. Well, it could. There's just going to be a variety of them at the bottom of your worksheet. So you might get an A plus B, you might get A plus C, you might get A minus C, you might even get B minus A. Should I do that one? No. This would also be a no solution because they're not the same dimension, right? So it just depends. It's going to be written in this form instead of having it in this form. You have a couple of them written like that. And this last one, if I said 1 minus 1, I would get 0. 2 minus 2, I would get 0. And then 3 minus 0, I would get 3. And 7 minus 0, I get 7. Okay? So your worksheet's not very hard today. Once I get it up for you, there are only 14 questions, but they're going to go really, really quickly. Okay? I will make sure there's room if you want to just put the work on the worksheet. You can do that, or you can do it on a separate sheet and upload it that way. All right? Any questions?